topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good evening. Welcome to Triversity Talk. I'm Wendy Stewart Kaplan, and it's Wednesday, and you're here with me now, which is making everything all perfect. I hope you all had a great week so far. Why do they call Wednesday Hump Day? Well, I know because it's in the middle of the week, but you know what? It gives like the Wednesday a bad connotation. I happen to like Wednesday because you're that much closer to Thursday, which is close to Friday. And then like you're getting revved up for the weekend. So that makes sense, right? Good. I'm glad we all agree. I want to give a shout out here to everyone I worked with at New Jersey Pride for the Fringe Equality Festival in Van Voorst Park, hosted by Evan Lawrence. Really, really fun, great show. Harmonica Sunbeam came by, politician Jim McGrary, who's going to be running for mayor in Jersey City. Vote for him. He's a very cool guy, and a host of other people. We loved performing in the park. I like performing in a park, you know, especially like, all right, New York parks can be a little funky sometimes, but this was Van Voorst Park in Jersey City in New Jersey, and it was beautiful. And you know how they tell you location is everything? Well, we were right by the dog run. It doesn't get any better than being right by the dog run. And Sunday, I had a great time doing a film, an independent film. I have to keep it under wraps, but I played a mom, like just like a normal mom. I never really get to do that. I'm always like the kind of mom that would be in a John Waters film. So that was good too. And great weekend. Looking for really good days ahead. Shout out here. I went to an amazing poetry reading with Nico Diaz. He is a queer poet, and he just launched his new poetry book. It's called Unchinchin, and a very well attended event. I mean, the poems were really great. They talked about being Latino, talked about going to a school like Cornell and not always feeling like you fit, talked about coming from the hood. It was so human, and his words were absolutely beautiful. He's young, and this was his first poetry book, so a shout out to him, hoping to get him on this show at a later date. So we're on a literary bend here tonight. Yes, we are. I recently picked up a book of somebody who's been on this show before. Now, this person has written very cool comedic books before now, and I know them as a comedian. But this is the first novel in a group of 4 novels. It's a standalone historical fiction novel featuring LGBTQ main characters, where their existence has been minimized or ignored in other books. And yeah, as you know, I've had other authors address this on the show. Thank you to our author tonight. By the way, I couldn't put the book down, and I called her up and I said, my God, you have to come back on the show. I need to talk about this novel. I didn't even know you could write this. It was just so good. Okay. Please put your hands together for the author of Blood Rouge, Jeza Belle.
Hello. It's so good to be back.
It's so good to have you here. I mean, I got to tell you, first of all, this book is just, all your writing's really great, but you know, in the world of novels, right? you wrote something that it really stands out on the storytelling level. When I tell you, you know, I have no time, right? I tell everyone that I have no time. And most of the time when people come on this show, I skim their book because I don't have time to read it. I have so many authors between both shows. And you sent me this book and I opened it up and couldn't put it down. I absolutely, and it's what I really call riveting. So, first of all, let's give our audience a little bit of backstory about you. You were on the show the last time with, I was going to call it your Come to Jesus meeting book, Jessa's Jesus Juice, a drag queen's Christian devotional. And that was so, it was, first of all, it was both funny but serious at the same time. Tell us a little bit about that and what made you write that book. Well, we lost Jeza Belle. Okay, we lost our guest. That parting is such sweet sorrow. She was having a little trouble with her computer in the beginning of the night. So if she wants to come back by phone, that's fine. We are here for you. But you know me, I'm just going to talk on because I am a blabbermouth. And this book, Blood Rouge, it's historical. It takes place in Germany during the war. And, you know, so many of us have a background in the history of Nazis, concentration camps, and what happened to people during the war. One topic that is hardly ever touched upon when you hear this history, you hear, okay, gypsies were murdered, other groups were murdered, but the way homosexuals were viewed and treated was absolutely horrific. And they were made to wear triangles on their arms. And it was just a terrible time for people like that in Germany. And talk about being persecuted, just the absolute worst. So the book has two main characters in it, and I'm going to go through it a little bit. They open up with our characters, and they're being in a square in town. Our main character here is being pushed around by a Nazi soldier, but things haven't gotten terrible yet, right? If you remember everything leading up, hi, Lovey, how are you? You're good. You sprung back and you're on a phone.
That is the quickest entrance and exit I've ever had in my life.
And there you go. And may I add that it was flawless. And once again, I can always count on your hair filling the frame. So I was about to get into this book a little bit, but now I'm going to hop back to your Jessa's Jesus Juice, a drag queen's Christian devotional. Why you wrote that and what your background is in religion.
Sure. Well, that was my second book. And yes, I did write books that had a comedic take to them. Jeza's Jesus Juice was inspired by the fact that I grew up a Christian, a Jewish Christian, who really was felt on the outside and marginalized by churches as a member of the LGBTQ plus community.
And being a Jewish Christian, you have the whole thing going on.
Yeah, I have a whole thing, why be like everybody else, right? Just be like the 12 apostles and you're good, So and I went to a conservative Christian college and then took me many years kind of clawing my way back. I kept a very close relationship with God, but it took me many years to kind of figure out where can I really make a difference in the lives of other people when it came to God, who's incredibly important to me. And that's how that book came to pass. And so one day I said, I'm going to write this. And I wrote it. And when I finished that book, it actually inspired me to go on and write this next book and the next one and the next one. Kind of really changed the trajectory of my life, to tell you the truth.
Why did you care so much for people to make people feel good with this book? Because it's a feel good book.
Yeah, I felt passionately about it because I looked at so many people over the years who were denied a connection to God because of what jerky people told them. Right. Not because of anything God did, but because of human beings. Right. And I thought, what's my role? What's my responsibility in carving out a path to make somebody who needs their heart touched by the loving power of God to hear that message in a way that nobody else was delivering it? I wasn't hearing it from anybody quite the way that I wanted to hear it, so I thought I'd deliver it myself.
It's interesting, Jeza Belle, though you didn't turn away from it because you weren't feeling it, you weren't getting it. You chose to create something inclusive.
Yes. Yeah. No, I didn't get it, but I still held on to my own faith.
You
Just
were.
didn't know what the pathway was to do for others. And eventually, it really, I mean, I've done some speaking at churches, but I didn't know I was ever going to write this book. It's like I told the story before that I was sleeping and I couldn't sleep. I was laying in bed and it was like 1, 2 in the morning. And I heard the song from The Color Purple, Maybe God is Trying to Tell You Something. And I said, what are you trying to tell me? And then suddenly I heard Jeza's Jesus Juice. And I knew all the chapters I was going to write. And then I just got off my tuchus, literally, that next morning and started writing it. I plotted it out, and the rest is history.
Would you call that, like, because you're describing something that's an epiphany or a calling when that happens, would you call it that?
Yes, I definitely believe that I was being spoken to. I do believe that God still speaks to us. May not always look the same way as people think when they think of biblical miracles, etc. But I do believe that God does speak to us. You know, all kinds of things happen, and we have such limited understanding as human beings. We think we know everything, and that's why a lot of people poo-poo religion and stuff. But frankly, we still don't know a damn thing. So I do believe that God does speak to us in ways that are beyond our comprehension.
Right. And you have to, but I think you're the type of person that's open to listening, right? And it came through to you. And, you know, whatever path you're on, this is no doubt for me after reading this other book. I have so many questions about it. This was definitely, you were channeling something here because, you know, I know you're a comedian. I know you can write, but the subject matter, this is kind of a subject matter that never enters into the room. I had a guest on here, Kit Blessing, who wrote a play that had a lot of similarities to this. It was called Salvation, and our friend Tim Moss was in it. And I went to the reading. It was a very upsetting play because of what it dealt with. It was how gays were persecuted, which was so unbelievably horrific. And I have to say, in your book, you certainly did the research because you handled nothing with kid gloves. It was absolutely blatant. So why this book? Why Blood Rouge?
Well, first I started with the idea of I wanted to tell stories about the LGBTQ plus community in time frames and in areas that haven't heard a lot, because we've always been around, we've always existed, but our stories are limited in very many ways to modern times. But we aren't just products of modern times. We've been all over the world since the dawn of time. And so it was very important to me to do, which is what I'm working on, to do a span of novels that kind of popped around at different places in different times and showed our existence, because we have been minimized and overlooked. And so when I thought about that, I was immediately drawn. I'm a fan of Marlene Dietrich, and I saw this quote about laughing and how it's gone, and you're really the one that was laughing. And I thought to myself, you know, I've heard things about gay people in Nazi Germany. We've heard a lot about the camps. I've heard very little about people that are gender fluid. I don't think I've heard anything about people that are gender fluid or gender diverse. And I thought, what a fascinating take it would be for me to kind of bring to light, because they existed then too, like they exist today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they were dealt with harshly and more harshly in many ways than just being plain old gay, which you were treated terribly. But even worse, you know, when you added this little twist to our population. So, and I really wanted to tell a story that was full of heart, that had an element of hope in a world of hopelessness.
Right.
And that really was a battle between how does one stay authentic and survive.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the way you developed your characters was just, the reader is completely drawn into the characters and what they're going through. You sympathize for them. You're horrified at some of the things that happened to them. The characters were very, very real. All I could think of when I was reading this book, I'm like, my God, this would make one hell of a play.
Thank you. I'm hoping one day we'll make it to film because I
Yeah.
do think it would be so powerful in film. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's so many shades of color in this book, from gray to black and white to blue to electric blue, right? And I just feel that it would make such a striking film because emotions are in all those colors.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, how did you go about researching? So I know a lot about the Holocaust, and I know about this aspect of the Holocaust. And you were just very, very spot on. Do you have a background in the Holocaust where you know this, or you had to do specific research for the book?
Did a little bit of both. Being a Jewish Christian and having grown up predominantly with my Jewish family side of the family, it's always been something that's been at the center of conversation and of our lives. You know, I can remember being with an uncle many, many years ago and watching a horrific documentary
Yeah.
of the Holocaust, and him turning to me and saying, "We saw all these dead bodies in a ditch at one of the camps," and him saying, any one of those people could be your relative. And that really always stayed with me. So I have been, over the course of my life, so drawn, not just to this thing about mankind, but this horrific human event.
Well,
And
yeah,
how,
a human being could do a genocide so brilliantly, pardon the pun, thought out, calculatingly thought out. And you do talk about that. And your research is impeccable in this, Jezebel. I have to tell you, because what you show in the book is exactly what happened. I mean, it was really well thought out.
thank you very, very much. Throughout the whole book, what I tried to do was ground myself in the time and in the life of each of these people. So,
Right.
what would they have seen? What would they have heard? What would the experience have been like? What would they have felt, not just emotionally, but physically, as
Yeah.
they went through each thing that they went through? And that has to be in the context of the time. It
Right.
can't be in the context of where we are today,
Right.
because things are the same, but things are different.
Of
So,
course.
in fact, it's very funny because a few days ago, I had seen one of my brothers, and he turned to me and said, "When the hell did you learn German?"
Ah,
After reading the book. But it was very important to me to be have a foot in language and everything to make it authentic.
well, that was all going to be one of my questions too. When the hell where the hell did you learn German? There's a lot of German phraseology in this book.
Yes, I made sure to immerse myself in the language and really look for appropriate um, idioms, terms. It's funny. I go back to the
What
Jewish thing.
language?
Growing up in a Jewish family, my grandmother spoke lots of Yiddish.
Right.
And Yiddish is one of those languages that just sort of, you can't ever really explain exactly word for word what it means, but it's totally more appropriate than anything you could say in any other language. And I sort of brought that flavor in to using words in and phrases in this book, because I thought sometimes it just makes better sense in the
Right.
context of this to just say it in the German.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because the language appears a lot in the book, and I had to go back and reread those parts of it because I'm like, oh, here comes German again. I better pay attention, But the authenticity of your characters, I feel, was utmost to you in the creation of them.
Thank you. I do appreciate that really much. That I'll tell you the truth. I was so attached to these characters that I was very shocked that when I finished the book, I cried my eyes out. Then when
Yeah.
I read through it to do my first kind of cleanup of the draft, I bawled again. And I
Right.
said to myself, this is ridiculous. I wrote the book, but I became so attached to the
Right.
characters that I couldn't help but to cry.
Well, and I'm not giving anything away here. I'm not going to be a spoiler. But the ending was not anything I expected. I just thought it would go another way. I hoped, right? And there are a lot of shocking moments in this book. So was that deliberate on your part to like just take it to the umpteenth?
No, it actually wasn't. It was really this was the it's like an avalanche, like a small pebble that starts at the top of the mountain and then
I got it.
cascades down. And
Right.
so these moments happened to some degree unbeknownst to me until they were happening. And I realized that this was the only way the rocks and the pebbles could fall.
Wow.
So yeah, and it's funny because when I through these 4 books that I'm working on, I'm actually into the third now, believe it or not.
So
Um,
what number 2 is? This is the first though.
this
Number
is the
2,
first one. Number 2 will come out at the beginning of next year.
so it's
Most likely.
already written.
It's already written and it's unbelievable. But I've realized that there, without setting out to do so, each one sort of crosses the controversial barrier of the line of just taking us to a different place than people either may have thought to go, may want to go. And it was not my intention. It's just the way it sort of happened because I
Because
think
it's
these tell true tales. That
right.
not every life is a picture perfect package. And yet in that, we still find a life.
Yeah, that's right. And I also felt like you either had someone that was close to you that was a Holocaust survivor. Do you have anyone?
Like I said, just family members, and
That's enough.
most of my family were ones that got out before the war.
Okay.
So most of them are not survivors of that. Although I have had sort of when you were asking about how I got into this, I've always been so fascinated by it. There was a book, and of course the name has just left me. Steven Spielberg was doing interviews of Holocaust survivors before they passed away, and so
Oh,
in the
I totally remember that. I totally remember when that
yeah.
happened. Right.
So there was a book by somebody that he interviewed, and it was in the maybe late 80s, early 90s. It was so powerfully moving to me. I will find the name of the book. It just has left my mind right now. And so I've done, of course, I've read lots of books from survivors over the course of my life, and, Night,
Were any of them though LGBTQ survivors? Did any?
no,
And right, I didn't think so.
no. And that's what drew me to this topic because there's very few voices that we've heard. Uh,
Is it?
I- yeah, it was very hard for me to find a lot of things I could dig my teeth into that showed people that survived, or it was more secondary, contemporaneous people
Right.
who were not LGBT who survived and could tell about the treatment.
Right. Right. Yeah, I would think that that is available out there. And also, I know that there were people that would be completely closeted during this time, right? Rightfully so, believe me.
Absolutely.
How scary, how
Yeah.
scary to just be carted away to a concentration camp. I mean, what happened was so unbelievable. Your historical aspects of this, you lead up to Crystal Night, all right, which believe it or not, there are people that don't even know what that is. Can you describe it for our audience?
Sure. It was a night when Nazis and I think other people also joined in that went basically bananas and
Right.
started smashing the glass and the windows of Jews and their establishments. And in this book, the main character is not Jewish. And I wanted to get the perspective of a Gentile, a non-Jew,
Right.
and what did they feel when they
Thank
saw this? Because not everybody was a willing participant, but yet you kind of see how somebody could get swept up and not really know where to take a stand, and that it's would be in a sense a cowardly form of safety to just kind of watch things go by. And what does that feel like and look like?
Right. I didn't get a feeling from the character that they were trying to hide, or they were dealing with their own sexuality, and what happened to them when they were in school and everything. And you build it really well because I won't give away like the opening, because the opening really goes into what happens later. But when you take us back to this person's history and how this boy was a Gentile but was picked on for being effeminate, right? He stood out because he was effeminate and didn't fit, and he saw the Nazis there, but it's kind of like, I'm not really sure what's happening, but this doesn't have anything to do with me. And
Yeah. Yep. And you can't escape a slight sense of guilt. And so I
right,
wanted to make sure that wasn't the whole focus of the book by any stretch of the imagination, but I had to thread a little of that in because it's
well,
going on around.
right, right, because it's the human aspect of it. Um, when you describe some of the things that happen in the book, as I say, were horrific, was it hard for you to write them?
Actually, it was very difficult to write, and I would want people to know, and I do put it on the back cover of the book, that the book does contain scenes of sexual assault.
Right,
Yes. And I think it's important to let people know that because these aren't light scenes of sexual assault. One is particularly gruesome, I think, but all of them can be emotionally difficult, I think, for people to digest. But that's the whole point, right?
right,
It really takes us to the edge of humanity and what people are capable of doing to others, and the repercussions of that, of
right.
those kind of actions.
Well, yeah, and also you took us into the fact that the gay bars, or shall we say the clubs at the time, right, were very much hidden. Wasn't anything that was out and blatant or whatever.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because let's not forget that up until the Nazis kind of swept in, the cabaret scene was pretty hip and
Right,
pretty hot. And
right,
it wasn't that much of a faux pas. You didn't have to be so quiet and closeted to have a little gender bender fun. And gay people existed a little bit more openly. I'm not going to say that the closet was flying open, but there
right,
was a little bit more room. And so I do try to highlight the fact that these cabarets and establishments existed, and then of course they ceased to exist over time as they became
totally. They
targeted.
were, well, they were shut down. I'm curious because the cabaret that you put your characters in was 99 and 9 tenths gay, in the cabaret. Were there at that time mixed cabarets too?
There were mixed cabarets, yes, absolutely. And so men and women came, and so that's what I meant. There was a little bit of gender bender fun. A
You
woman,
could
if
be
you look
gay
at,
and go to
yeah,
mix with other people. They could be hetero. They could be anything.
yeah, and if you looked at going back to the Marlena Dietrich era,
Yes.
in Blue Angel, it's like a woman could dress like a man, still be
Yeah.
sexy, and so there was that kind of flavor there. And, you know, people wore makeup, and, there were drag queens. And in this book, I call them dolls.
You did
Um,
call them dolls, and
yeah,
that was,
yeah.
I was going to ask you. Was that what they called them at that time?
That was called a little creative liberty.
Okay, I like it, Jezebel. I like it.
Yeah, I just saw them as dolls. I just felt like that perfectly fit to the cabaret scene,
Yeah.
and I had a lot of fun writing the one main doll, and then of course what happens with the main character. But the main doll, I had a blast uh, uh, coming up with that character.
Fun. Yeah, yeah. I just, again, I couldn't put it down. I'd love to see this on stage or get made into something eventually. But you're already on to book number 2. Now, does book number 2 take place in Europe or is it here? How much can you tell us about book number 2?
Sure, I'd be happy to tell you. It's called The Freedom to Love. It will come out the end of the year, beginning of next year. It takes place in pre-Civil War America.
Oh, so that, okay, now we're in back in the United States and pre-Civil War.
Pre-Civil War America. I don't want to go too much more into it than that, other than
Yeah,
to
I
say
understand.
that
Wow.
it is really, real something I'm very proud of. The finished product, very and most excited. I do recognize upfront that it is likely to cause some controversy, and be a hot topic potentially, as somehow whatever I seem to touch lately seems to become a hot, controversial topic. We just go back to Jez's Jesus Juice. Can't help but note that. Um, but I really am excited about the next one as well. And then the ones that one's done and just in the editing, finalization kind of
Finalization,
process.
right?
And I'm writing the third one now. I'm a little bit more than a third through. And then in the next year, that'll probably come out towards the end of next year. And then the last one will come out after that. I'm already actually 2 books further down the line past those, have some commitments for 2 other books beyond. And I'm hoping very, very much to write a musical at some point over the next year and a half to have an idea that I've had for a while that I just have to find time to make it happen.
Well, I know. I'm listening to you. You are abundant in work here. And how do you find the time to do this? People go through things like writer's block. It seems like you just sit down and it just flows from you.
I have writer's block too sometimes, or sometimes I just need a break. And I just want to
Yeah.
watch some trash TV, even though I need to be writing. And I'll say to myself, hello, you need to get your behind in front of that computer. And then I'm like, oh, but this garbage on TV is just so distracting. It's totally normal to do that. If I tell you the truth, I am so wildly busy that I oftentimes write from 2 to 4 in the morning. And
So you don't sleep. You okay? So your mind. That's. I was going to get into that. You're underneath that big hunk of red hair, really red hair. Your mind is completely active at night. You can't shut it off.
kind of day and night. I am so usually so swamped busy that the best time, sometimes I fall asleep early, sometimes I don't. And then I'll just get up and start writing. And sometimes I'll write for an hour, go back to sleep.
Right.
Sometimes I fall asleep thinking about what's the next part? How do I play this out as I look further down? What would he do? What would he say? I don't like that. And I have to choose. So I do get blocked sometimes too, because sometimes I'm just stuck and say, I don't like where it's at. And there's a phrase from, I think it's Truman Capote, kill your darlings.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
yeah, that has become so dear to me in my working on writing, because oftentimes I just go back and say, I may love it, it doesn't work. Chop it, save it for something else, kill your darling, and keep it moving.
You know what? That's great that you can do that. I think where people get tripped up, both in writing books and screenplays and even plays, is the ego, right? The playwright that can't let it go, or the author that can't let it go and
Yeah.
stomps on the person who's reading it, the receiver of it. Your book completely moved. When I tell you, I listen, I have stacks of books, and then I'm a member of the Explorers Club. So we have a lot of accomplished people in our club that write books. So I'm looking at a huge stack over here. And for me to pick something up and just not be able to put it down during my normal work week, it was really incredible. I mean, your pacing and the level of interest that you held was great. I can't wait to read the second book. I'm curious, have you gotten any? I know you got some pushback from Jez's Juice, Jez's Jesus Juice.
The
Well,
tongue twister.
I can't even say it. Did you get any pushback on this book?
No, actually, so far I have not, and I'm a little surprised. Dealing with the nature of the assault that's in it, I figured that would strike some nerve. Now, I have gotten tears from people, and people telling me that it's been hard for them to read, but nobody's come for me. They're still coming for me for my other book, but they don't come for me for that.
Yeah,
But
I know the Jez's Jesus Juice, the Drag Queens Christian devotional. I think they're going to continue to come for you for that one. That like hits on a note out there that they may have an issue with.
for a
The
long
Heart
time.
Guide to Classy Cocktails. Is that a mixology book?
Yes, so The Heartless Guide to Classic Cocktails was my first book featuring my delicious drink recipes and drunk drag queens. And it was a compilation of tales from some of the funniest, most popular drag queens all around the world on almost every continent: Australia, Africa, Europe, Asia, North America, South America. Got a little bit of everybody in there. We're just missing Antarctica. of course, but
Why
I'm
are
sure.
you missing Antarctica? What the heck is wrong with you?
You know, I can sort of be an ice queen myself, so I think I bridge a couple of continents. But it was just so much fun making that book, drinking a lot of drinks, trying them out, and just having a lot of campy fun and putting together this compilation of stories from people. Some of them just cracked me up to no end. And
Right.
so one of the things I've enjoyed is that every single thing I've done has been kind of different, even though they say you should pick one lane. I have a hard time with that because I love doing so many different things creatively.
Right.
And when you talk about the pacing before, that struck warmed my heart because one thing I try to always keep in mind, whether it's something on stage, I've written screenplays, writing books, is the audience.
Right.
Because I feel like as an audience member that I don't want to get bogged down in something else because somebody feels like it's important to them to drone on and kill me
Right.
with 7,000 pages when I know as an audience member, I like the story to move, right?
Yeah.
And so I tried to keep that in mind and keep that pacing going because, yeah, I could have doubled the size of the book, but that would have been about me and not about the reader. And
Right.
so when you said that, it really like touched me because I said, well, that means it worked. You know, the
It
pacing worked.
totally worked, and the content in Blood Rouge, it was concise, it was consolidated without missing anything. It was really it's kind of like those cocktails you made. It's just the right amount of everything. It
Yes,
really is. I'm so excited for you. The cover also. Who came up with the cover?
my publisher came up with the cover. I want to give a shout out to Resource Publications. They're
Yes.
they're an imprint of Whipped and Stock, and I have to tell you, it is a few things. First of all, it is near to impossible for LGBTQ people to get a publishing deal. Traditionally published authors are only 3% of our community are represented out there. And in books, only 3% of characters are LGBTQ. Now, when
Right.
you take into account that I am using my drag name and character to write, um, there were a lot of closed doors because 0%, there's an almost 0% of transgender people. Now, I'm not transgender, but there is almost 0% of traditionally published authors are transgender. Now, to the publishing world, and I often apologize to my fabulous transgender brothers and sisters that they get stuck with me, lumped in with them, but they get stuck with me because that's how the publishing world sees me. And so many
Oh,
times,
yeah, right, right.
yeah, and so many doors were closed, and I've had people say to me, and I've written screenplays too, that won tons of awards, and people would say to me, "We will publish this, we'll produce this, but you have to use your boy name. Nobody wants a product with that name," and I refuse to do.
Hold up. In the music industry, how many people go by one name? So if a person is cisgender, they're allowed to have one name, but because you're a drag queen, you're not allowed to use your drag name. Come on.
Yes, and so when I was looking for the right publisher for Jez's Jesus Juice, people did say to me, "It's not going to happen unless you change." They're really going to have a hard time with this. Now, this publisher took a chance with me, and were a predominant, well-known religious publisher to start with, and so they had that lane, and they said, "Sure, we're going to go." They published some of the most conservative books in the world, and they were like, "Okay, why not?" And so I wound up getting multiple offers for the novel, but my relationship with them was so good that I said, and they said, "Oh, we'll do all four of your novels because we just loved working with you," that I said, "I'm gonna go ahead and go with them." And and it's
Absolutely.
been a fabulous, even though I already have a fifth book lined up with a fifth novel lined up with another publisher who's waiting in the wings, who desperately said they want me, they've got to have something from me, which is a wonderful place to be after spending.
I think it's a totally fabulous place because what you're saying is true in terms of LGBTQ product, in terms of books, in terms of being an author, getting lumped in as trans. There's transgender people that write books. There's drag queens that write books. Why is this such a line of demarcation? Shouldn't it be about the content of the book? I
That's
mean,
my Yeah, exactly. That was my point. I said I
Why would
absolutely
anyone
refuse.
care or look at that? So you know what? You, congratulations to you for breaking through. What do we call that? The glass ceiling. And with that hair, you could.
You're right, and I wouldn't feel a thing.
And you would
No, and
feel.
I do feel good about that because I do feel like in my own small way, hopefully the next person that comes behind me will be able to publish a book and have a much wilder name and bigger hair
Right.
than I do. And
Right.
that would be a wonderful thing, and I hope that that's the future of where we're going.
or
But
or not. They're a person. Okay, you as Jezebel, you're a personality. That I would just, if we have to be categorized, like I get categorized as a personality and then an
mhm.
actress. Personality is a really great place to be. We should be allowed to have whatever name we want to call ourselves. And you
I
have always been Jezebel.
Yeah. And that was the thing too. So when I did find people, they would say, okay, like this is so deep and these are sound so great as novels. Do you have something camp? And so I
Yeah.
love camp. Of course, I love comedy. I live for a good trashy camp. I love camp. But it's like also like I have something to say that is not just that. I have another thing to say and it's something heavy and it's important and we need to hear it. And so
You're
no, I'm not going to write you a camp. I'm going to write you this heavy historical fiction where we were around, we were present, and hence the Presence collection.
right. And there will be other books in this collection that will address the fact in history that you were around. You know what? I'd love to see a book on, like in Italy with three sexes when they dealt with that and what it was like for those people. Because the setting would be like Sicily and way back in history because they acknowledged that there were three sexes. And I forgot what they called them. I know in Hawaii they have it. Oh my God, you could do a book about Hawaii, that was set back in history.
Yeah, that's the point, right? It's endless.
It's
We've been
endless. The
we've
sky's
been
the
in
limit.
every culture in every society
Right.
since the dawn of time.
Right. And thank you for putting it out there. I've had Patrick Fields on this show and the other show, If These Walls Could Talk. Patrick, his novels are historical. He's a gay man. His characters are gay, and he does stories that, of course, include the supernatural. So the ghosts are also. And I talked to him as I'm talking to you. How hard was it to find a publisher? He did, but you seem to have them beating a path down to your door. And it's interesting to me that and correct me if I'm wrong, Jezebel, the same company that published the cocktail book, this conservative company, took these historical novels as well.
The one that did Jeza's Jesus Juice by drag
Wow.
queen Christian Devotional, and which
Well,
was really,
conservative, it's just unbelievable to me. Why
yeah.
do you think they did that? Like, that doesn't fit any profile of what we want.
No, I think that the experience that we had together built a bridge, and the book was, I would call it something of a hit because it did get quite a bit of attention, and yet they were so wonderful to work with. And maybe I'm the first person like me that they've ever worked with before. And so they're so nice and they're so kind, all of them. And it's like it's just a wonderful experience, and I felt so good about staying with them.
But
And
they
doing,
are conservative. That's what's interesting to me.
yeah, they publish a lot of conservative books. They really do. But conservative,
Conservative.
right? Yeah.
I don't even think that's a word. I think we just made it up here. But you know, you brought out something. They were more interested in the content of what the person wrote than anything else, and that's how it should be, right?
Yeah, right. I think that they're really committed to authors who have something different to say. Uh,
Right.
and so I definitely have something different to say. And so that's where the relationship was born out of. Was so tickled when they took Jez's Jesus Juice, and it's just been wonderful. So I do have to give them that shout out. And I look forward to continuing to work with them. And I look
Absolutely.
forward to so many things down the line. Somebody said to me the other day, like, what haven't you done? And I'm like, there's a ton I haven't done.
The
I
sky's
barely
the limit
scratched the
for you.
surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to do it all.
Well, no, you can do it all. I mean, you have a lifetime. That's how I look at it. And you have your tentacles into many things as I do. I am finding I'm reeling some of them in because I don't want to spread myself too thin. You know, when we have a lot going on and then you get home at the end of the day and you're completely fried because you've dealt with 200 emails, and you know, I'm here interviewing you and my phone is dinging because the texts are coming in. And sometimes, like, not by 9 o'clock at night, I kind of feel like you do. I just want to turn on Netflix and watch trash. And by the way, the murder of, what was that girl, Lacey? What's her name?
Oh, is it? It's not Peterson.
Scott and Lacey.
Mhm.
That murder
Peterson.
20 years ago. It's the newest documentary on Netflix. It is such trash. I highly recommend it. If you want to park your brain, Jeza Belle, that's the one for you. It's 3 episodes.
I will definitely check it out. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and you know, it definitely, you want to have things that you don't think about. At least when I have to rest my, and that's something I say all the time. I have to rest my brain. Saturday, you know, I did Jersey City Pride and everything that was involved with that. And then Sunday I was doing a film. I had to be on set really early. So I didn't have enough sleep. And, you know, by Sunday it was like, oh my God, my lines, my this, my that. I start stressing, and you know what happens when you stress? You get writer's block, or if you have lines, you forget them. I am notorious for forgetting the lyrics that I write to my parodies at this point. I write them. What the hell is wrong with me that I all of a sudden I'm up there and I know these things. I sing them. How come I can't remember them?
To me, though, that can be even funnier sometimes, right? When we
Yes.
forget the lyrics and we're like, we wing it. I don't know the words I wrote.
That's exactly what I did, and everyone said, "Great comeback." But you know what? I was kind of mad at myself because of it. I guess it's kind of like the same for you if you're rating something and you get so far and like, damn, I can't get any further with this right now. What the hell? It's an important lesson to learn. You have to put it down and walk away from it.
That's why I always say I believe in giving ourselves a lot of grace.
Right.
Give it to others.
Ooh,
Give it to ourselves.
You absolutely. So, Jeza Belle, you're also a performer, a comedian. Tell me what's going on with you. Is there someplace we can come see you that we can promote on here?
Yes, let's see. What do I have coming up? So first, I am going to be in the Love and Hope International Film Festival in Barcelona.
I remember that.
Yes, I'm excited about that. Telling the winners of the best LGBTQ feature and short films. So really excited about that. I'm actually watching a lot of them right now, helping to judge that. Then I'm going to be away because I'm celebrating 15 years with my partner, and I'm actually going to Africa for a couple weeks. And
get out. Oh my gosh.
I'm very much looking forward to that. Then when I come back, I'm going to be participating as a guest speaker at the Book Fest, which is an international book festival. My portion will actually be online, so people will be able to watch it anywhere in the world. I will actually be doing a fun Halloween-themed cocktail and then talking about all of my books and queuing up for a Q&A at that.
Well, I don't want to miss that. When is that and where?
It will be online, and I will definitely post it October 26th or 7th, I believe.
Right before Halloween. Okay.
On that weekend, yes. Then I actually am working on putting together a holiday show. And then after that, it'll be New Year's. And I'm hoping that I'm already queued up to speak at a religious conference at the beginning of the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to live in your hair and follow you around. I'm moving to your hair.
Believe it, there's plenty of space. And I always say when I come on anything on camera, this is my smallest one.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, it really does. You know how they always say you have to fill the frame? You never have to worry about that because all you have to do is just show up and you'll fill the frame. Well, we are like down to like a minute here, real quick. Where are you going in Africa?
I'm going to South Africa.
Oh, how fabulous. Good for you.
Very much looking forward to
You're
it.
going to see the animals there, I know. And wine tasting, are you going to do some of that?
Absolutely. Everywhere I go, gotta hit the bottle.
Got to hit the bottle because Jessa's got to have her juice.
That's exactly right, one way or another.
Well, Jeza Belle, thank you. I was so excited to have you on here. The book is Blood Rouge. It's out now, and they can get this on Amazon. And tell me what bookstores, New York City, local, that you can get it in.
You know what? At this stage, I don't even know. But if they don't have it, you should tell them, get Blood Rouge.
Yeah,
because we all want it.
It is. It's such a wonderful book. And I heard your book signing for this was terrific too. Unfortunately, at Stonewall, I could not make it, but a number of my friends were there then. Jeza Belle, thank you so much. I wish you all the best. And got to take my picture now. Cheese. I always like to do a few.
Of course, I can't see a thing. I don't have my glasses on.
Oh, I can't see a thing either. But I've learned how to work without being able to see anything. Thank you so much, and best of luck to you.
Thank
Good
you
night,
so much.
everybody.
Mwah.
Thank you. Mwah.